Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to be doing like three mini recaps because I have one that I didn't post last week, and then from this past Sunday, I went that day and then also that night. So I have double notes for that day. So starting off, we're going to talk about Jesus heals the man born blind, and then we're going to go into teenagers standing up for God and Daniel in the lion's den. So, starting off with Jesus heals the man born blind, I'm going to be starting in John 9 1 through 12. Today we sang, or that day we sang, Since Jesus came into my heart, victory today is mine. Fill my way with love. Love keeps me singing, and coming soon. Coming soon was more of like a little special that we do. Like, if you want to sing, you can go up and sing, and our preacher's wife is also our pianist, and so she'll sing that song, and it's like an amazing song. And I feel like someone in her family might have wrote it. It's something like that. We've talked about it before. But so starting off with verse 1, John 9, this is the man born blind. As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God may be displayed in him. We must work for the good works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with his saliva. Then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud and said to him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So he went and washed and came back saying, The neighbor and those who had seen him before as a beggar were saying, Is this not the man who used to sit and beg? Some said, It is he. Others said, No, but he is like him. He kept saying, I am the man. So they said to him, Then how were your eyes opened? He answered, The man called Jesus made mud and anointed my eyes and said to me, Go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed and received my sight. They said to him, Where is he? He said, I do not know. So that was 1 through 12. And then we're also going to continue into 13 through 16 in just a minute. So this man was born blind. And so the disciples' questions to Jesus was, Did this guy sin or did his parents sin? Because someone had to sin for something bad like this to happen. And Jesus told him, No, like that isn't why people get sick. Some people may get sick because they're bad people, but in this situation, he was born blind from birth. And so that just meant that he was born like that so the power of God can be used to like show people that this is real. So like this guy's sick, so we can be like, so he can say, go see, and the guy sees, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the Son of God. People believe that if you're sick, you aren't getting what you prayed for. It's because of sin. Like, oh, you've been praying for this long and you still haven't got it. There must still be sin in your life, and that's not necessarily the reason. Like if you think back to Job, Job was, if you don't know, Job was a super great Christian. He was always praying, he was always doing everything he was supposed to. Him and God were tight. And Satan was like, I bet if something goes wrong in this guy's life, he'll stop worshiping you. And so then he ends up doing all these bad things to Job, like killing his he like gets welts all over his body, he kills his animals. And so then at the very end, like Job is left with nothing and he's still praying to God. He's like, God, please help me. And so all of these things happen and he was still choosing God over not choosing God. The prophecy said, so this is back to these, or this is the Pharisees. The Pharisees are like seeing all these things is doing, and they still don't believe that he's the Messiah. The prophecy said that the Messiah would heal the blind. When the man is healed, they were confused and had to get the like Pharisees, all these people. They're like, "Yo, this guy's he's healing the blind people," and they were like, "Well, he doesn't need to be doing that or whatever." Because That's how they were. And so then John 9 verse 32, this is like where they like mention the prophecy a little bit. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the man of a Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. So no one's heard of this ever. So like if there's a prophecy saying the Messiah, the Son of God, is going to open a blind man's eyes, never in history has this happened. And then boom, it happens and they're like, nah, that can't be right. Some people, it happens. We miss God all the time. So, I mean, we can't really say anything bad about them. And then here's where we're going to continue from 13 to 16. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was the Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. So the Pharisees again asked him how he had received his sight. And he said to them, He put mud on my eyes, and I washed, and I see. Some of the Pharisees said, This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. But the others said, How can a man who is a sinner do such signs? And there was a division among them. So one side is like, this guy is amazing. He's the only guy who's ever healed a blind man before. The other guy's like, who cares? He did it on the Sabbath. Like they're ignoring this massive thing that Jesus had done just because, oh, he did it on the Sabbath. They completely disregard the fact that he healed a blind man and instead claim that he wasn't God because he worked on the Sabbath, which is crazy. The Pharisees don't believe that he is Jesus. They have no power and they know they'll lose power if word gets out about Jesus. So the Pharisees are used to being in control. So they're like, this guy Jesus comes around, we aren't going to be in control anymore. We're going to be getting nothing out of nobody because of this guy. So they don't like him. The blind man said that he was healed because of Jesus and he gets kicked out of the synagogue, but he doesn't care. So that is over in verses 26 and 27. They said to him, What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? He answered them, I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why? Do you want to hear it again? Me personally, I would probably get a little attitude, and that's how I would say it. Why? Do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples? So, first off, they don't like Jesus. And then this guy has the audacity to say, You're asking so much about it. Do you also want to be his disciple? And that just like hammered it further into them. And so then he got kicked out of the synagogue because they didn't like that. Um, the blind man said that he was healed because of Jesus, and he gets kicked out of the synagogue, and he doesn't care. The Pharisees are angry at the man for thinking that they want to be disciples of Jesus. God does things we won't understand in the present, but you will understand in the future. Where was I going with that? I think our preacher just mentioned it. But back from verses 26 and 27. After he gets kicked out, when he gets kicked out, the Jesus comes and finds him. So I think that's where I was going with it. He does things we don't understand in the present. So like the guy gets kicked out and he's like, well, why does this happen? And then Jesus comes and finds him. He's like, yo, I am the Son of God. We're tight. You'll never know the Bible the right way without knowing God. So like these Pharisees, they didn't know God, so they didn't know the Bible the right way. That's why they were kind of abusing their power because they didn't fully understand everything because they weren't fully understanding the Bible. Every time you deny the Holy Spirit, your heart gets harder. So God has to break your heart to reach it. So say you've been like pushing off going to church. You push it off, you push it off, you push it off, you get sick. Someone in your family gets sick. Someone in your life dies. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I need to turn back to God. So then you start going back to church again. God needs to break your heart in order for you to get back into what you're supposed to be doing. That's what needs to be done for us to really focus and like lock in and be like, okay, I really need to be doing this. I haven't been doing what I need to be doing, and now I need to be. If you live life against God, he won't bless you and he'll take your blessings away. So if you're like living your best life and then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, God can take that away. He will stop blessing you and take what you have away from you. He does not care. Everything we have done here on earth means literally nothing. So why would he care to take anything away from you? Nothing that's here on earth is going with you when you go to heaven or hell. And the last thing I said, or that I wrote down, was the devil is recruiting people, so you can see all these people, all these celebrities, whatever you want. They can also be false prophets. Like anybody can be a false prophet. They can say something, and if you don't read the Bible, you won't know if it's true or not. So they could be lying to your face and you would have no idea because you don't know what they're talking about. So always be alert. When Jesus is in the wilderness, he's in the wilderness and he's fasting, and at this point in time, he hasn't had like any food or anything, so he's like starving. And so the devil comes and he's like, I'll give you some food if you like say you're not the son of God or whatever. And what Jesus does is every time the devil tempts him, he he like fights back with Bible verses. So if we don't know all this knowledge on the Bible, then how are we supposed to know what is true and false? How are we supposed to know who the false prophets really are? We need to be reading the Bible for ourselves. And I know sometimes that can be hard. Trust, it's hard for me too, especially with how many distractions are available for you. Like in this point in time, like I get there were distractions back then, obviously, like back hundreds of years ago. And now it's the same way, but it's so accessible now for like all these distractions. Like your phone, you can be distracted on your phone for hours. I know it's hard to sit down and log in and read your Bible, but it's okay. We're doing this together. Our next little lesson or recap is on teenagers standing up for God, and this will be in Daniel 1:5. Okay. This was the 22nd, so like this past Sunday, and we sang Just a Little Talk with Jesus. Jesus spoke to me. I'll live in glory, getting ready to leave this world, and heavenly love. And we're reading Daniel 1 through 5. And then I think we read a little bit more after that, but starting off there. Daniel taken to Babylon is my little header. In the third year of the region, and this is going to be really bad with the names, so please don't judge me. In the third year reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judea, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judea, into his hand with some of these vessels of the house of God. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and placed the vessels in the treasury of his God. Then the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance, and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. The king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate and of the wine that he drank. They were educated for 3 years, and at the end of the time they were to stand before the king. And it's like, among these were Daniel. These are the four we're going to focus on today. Daniel, Shadrach, or it was Hananiah, he called Shadrach, Mishael, he called Meshach, and Azariah, he called Abednego. So one thing that I've looked at a camp, like church camp before, is that he took these people away from their home, and specifically Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He changes their names, so they're like less connected than they were before with like their family. So starting off, they took children away from their parents, and only 4 disobeyed the king, which was Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. God wants us to put him on the spot so he can show off. So this is where we're going down to verse 8. But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that he drank. Therefore, he asked the chief of eunuchs to allow him to not defile himself. So they're like, hey, we can't eat your food. It's not what we're supposed to eat. Like, they weren't supposed to eat like pork and stuff. So they were like, hey, I can't do that. And what they do is um they eat, I think it says vegetables. Like for a little bit, they eat vegetables, and like after a certain amount of time, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are like healthier than all the other boys because God had like they had God's favor. So because they didn't eat the food that God told them not to eat, they were blessed even though they were eating food that wasn't as good for them. Like you're supposed to have like all the main food groups and they were only eating like vegetables. They were still healthier than these other boys that were taken with them. So that was God then putting God on the spot so God can show off because they're like, you can't like be as healthy as these boys because you're not eating all the food, and they did. And so they were like, that was God showing off that they were still okay because they had his favor. God makes Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego wise. And then God made Daniel able to know and interpret the king's dreams. So me Nebuchadnezzar is having these dreams. And he gets all these people, like all these magicians and stuff, like the fakes. And they're like, he's like, I need you to interpret my dream. And they're like, okay, what's your dream? And he's like, I don't remember. That's your job. It's your job to remember, like, find out my dream and tell me what it means. And all these people were like, I have no idea. Like, how am I supposed to know your dream? So they're making stuff up and it's obviously fake. And then Daniel he's able to know and interpret the dream. And so he comes up there and he tells him what's going on. And he's chill. I'm pretty sure he gets promoted. Yeah, Daniel gets promoted because of all of this. And then later, everyone knows the fiery furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they won't bow down to Nebuchadnezzar, and so they had to go into a fiery furnace. And as they're walking up there, all the soldiers around them start dying. Like they heated the furnace up like 4 times hotter than it was supposed to be. So all these guards just start dying, and they're like looking around. They're like, "Yo, I don't feel anything." And he's like, "Yeah, me neither. Let's just go in there." So they go in the furnace, and Nebuchadnezzar looks in. He's like, "Yo, wait, I see 4 people. And why does one of them look like God?" And he's like, "Oh crap, what is going on?" And when they come out, nothing on the boys is burnt, nothing is singed but the ropes that they were tied with. So they were completely fine and they were free when they got out. And after Nebuchadnezzar saw this, he was like, yo, their God is the real God. We obviously see this. We need to start worshiping him instead of my God and me and all that jazz. So if we put God into the fight, God will show up and show out. But mind you, you are not supposed to like do something. You're not supposed to test God. Like the devil when he's tempting Jesus. He's like, if you can do whatever you want, if all the angels will come to your rescue, jump off this cliff and make all of them angels come save you. And he's like, no, you're not supposed to tempt God. So don't do something like that. But especially if you're being persecuted and you like give God an opportunity to like step in, he will help you. But as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, we know our God can deliver us. But even if he doesn't, we still won't bow down to you. So we know that God can help us, but it's up to God if he actually does help us. That's why some people, when they pray, they're like, oh, why isn't this happening? I'm doing everything right and I'm praying and I'm still not getting this. God can give you what you pray for. It just depends on what you're praying for and how you're praying for and how he thinks this situation or whatever should be handled, whether or not he will actually answer your prayer. Does that make sense? There's four in the fire, and one of them looks like the Son of God. I already went over this. If you want to be set free, sometimes you need to get in the fire. Basically, if you want to get set free. So sometimes if you want something to happen, you have to get in there. If you want something, you might actually have to work for it to get it. That's how things work. If you want something, you got to work for it, or you got to put yourself in a situation where you will thrive, I guess. If you want, okay, this is like a really common one. If you pray for like patience, God's gonna put you in situations where you're gonna have to be patient. If you want, this is something I struggle with, especially anger, He's gonna put you in situations where you can't get angry, or where that you need to have to control yourself. Like sometimes if you want to be set free from that burden, you need to get somewhere where that burden is going to affect, like personally affect you. If you are praying, if you like a guy and you're like, he isn't someone I need to like, boom, you're gonna get shown that that ain't someone you need to be with easily. Next, you're going to do what God wants you to, whether you like it or not. If you're gonna like, oh gosh, Jonah? I think it's Jonah. I need to fact check that. He goes, God's like, I want you to go preach here. And he's like, no, I don't want to. And he does all this stuff. He gets sidetracked. He's like, I don't want to do this. He still ends up going there and he still ends up doing it. Our preacher, he's talked about like his testimony before. He was called to preach when he was like 20, I think. 30? 30? 20? I think it was 30. And he didn't preach. And so his family had to go through a bunch of crap before he was finally like, okay, I need to do something. And then here we are now. He's preaching. So like at a certain point you'll either do what God tells you to, or God will stop asking you to do things, which is not a good thing. We don't like when God stops talking to us and stops asking us to do things. We want to be people God can like call on. We need to be people, sorry I have the hiccups. We need to be people that God can be like, I can count on her. I know she'll do this. I believe in her. I choose her to go do this. I want her to go spread the word for me, etc., etc. So now we're flipping over to like our nighttime church lesson, and this is Daniel 6, 1 through 10. And at that night we sang, when they ring the golden bells, help me, Lord, to stand. I'm bound for the kingdom. Lord, build me a cabin in glory and Rock of Ages, and when I get home. So this one was talking about Daniel in the lion's den, and this is Daniel verses 6 verses 1 through 10. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be thought throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 high officials, of whom Daniel was one, to whom these satraps should give account, so that the king might suffer no loss. Then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps. So this is Daniel's promotion we were talking about earlier. Like he's above all these people. He's like his kind of second in command type deal. Then the high officials and the satraps sought to find ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom, but they could find no ground for complaint or any fault, because he was faithful and no error or fault was found within him. Then these men said, we shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God. So they're like, this guy does nothing wrong ever. The only thing we're going to be able to do is use his religion against him, which sometimes still does happen. Then these high officials and satraps came by agreement to the king and said to him, O King Darius, live forever. All the high officials of the kingdom, the prefects and the satraps, the counselors and the governors are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an injunction that whoever makes a petition to any god or man for 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the injunction and sign the document so that it cannot be changed, according to the law of Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked. Therefore, King Darius signed the document and injunction. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went into his house, where he had windows and his upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knee 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he had done previously. Then these men came by agreement and found Daniel making petitions and plea for his God, and they take him away. So, even though, so first off, this King Darius guy has got a big head. So these people are like, yo, we don't want Daniel to be in charge of us. We're jealous. He was brought here with all these little boys, and now he's gonna be over all of us. This ain't gonna work. So they go and they're like, oh Darius, oh King Darius, how lovely you are. Nobody should be able to pray to anything or worship anything other than you. And he's like, you know what? That sounds like a great idea. Let me sign that paper. Mind you, we haven't got there yet. I need to read through some of this before I start talking. If we are faithful in the little things, God will reward us. So, Daniel, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were blessed for trusting in God. They did what God told them to. They didn't eat the food they were told not to eat, and so they were rewarded. And this was Daniel's reward, getting to be in charge of all these people and so high up. Kind of like, oh, it's not Joseph. I'll think of it a little bit. The boy with the jacket. Oh gosh, this isn't making me look good. He was sold into slavery and then he becomes like second in command or rule over Egypt. That guy. They were blessed for trusting in God. So this was Daniel's blessing. The people were jealous of David, so they wanted to take him out, but he was doing nothing wrong anywhere in work, so they had to look to his religion. Daniel made sure to pray, even though it was illegal. King Darius loved Daniel, but he loved him because he made him a lot of money. Because God was blessing Daniel, and therefore blessing the kingdom, and therefore blessing King Darius. And he worried about him in the lion's den because he was so blessed. So he's like, if Daniel goes away, all of my blessings and all of my money goes away, which is no good. So, one thing we talked about is so Daniel's in the lion's den and he's chilling. They're like walking around. He's like, "Yo, what's up?" Everyone's chill with the lions. The lions are chill with him. So I forgot to mention that right when they took Daniel out, or a little while later, they threw another guy into the lion's den, and the lions were hungry and they tore him apart. So that was just again to prove how much God was like for Daniel and protecting Daniel in the moment while he was in the lion's den. What we talked about is the bloom where you're planted. In every situation, you need to be content. Like you saw those charts, like grow where you're planted or whatever, like a little sign. Whatever situation you're in, you need to be content with your situation. Like they were content with their situation of being taken from their parents, they thrived, and now they're being rewarded. Now, Daniel is in the lion's den, and he's like, God's gonna save me. I'm good. And so God saves him, and he's good. God God puts us in valleys and ditches to show we can still grow. So one analogy like we use in churches, you can buy some flowers for a bunch of money. You can buy a nice bouquet and the flowers are nice. But then also you can see in like ditches some pretty flowers. Like on just on the side of the road or somewhere like that's not really a nice place, there can still be nice little flowers or even like weeds that are still cute. And so sometimes at the highest valleys, highest mountains, nothing grows. But down in the valley where no one wants to be, that's where those flowers can bloom and grow and blossom and look very nice. So that was a little analogy we use. So even if you are in the valley, you can still grow and still be content in your situation. And then we were talking about in Acts, when the church is actively being persecuted, that's when the church grew the most. So when they were like, we're killing Christians, that's when the church grew the most, was when they were being persecuted. So that's why sometimes bad things have to happen in order for us to grow. Daniel was okay because God sent an angel to protect him. And sometimes God has to do that to us. Sometimes, like in a situation, like, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky that this happened. I'm so lucky that I survived. So lucky I didn't get hurt. And then when you think on it, you're like, I shouldn't have been okay. I should have got hurt. I should have got injured. I maybe should have died in that situation. You could have gotten in a car wreck and be like, how did I even survive? Sometimes God sends a guardian angel to guard us, to protect us, like he did with Daniel and other people in the Bible, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, for example. God can do anything, but that doesn't mean that he will. Back to the three boys. They said, I know my God can save me, but that doesn't mean that he will. In our situations, sometimes we have to go through what we're going through in order for us to be shaped how God wants us to be. So even though he can deliver us from some situations, he still might not. But that doesn't mean that you necessarily are doing anything wrong. Daniel 1:26. I make a decree that in all my royal dominion people are to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. He delivers and rescues, he works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus and Persia. Because Daniel obeyed, Daniel obeyed and that he believed, he was blessed. So because he did exactly what God said, that he didn't follow their rule and he still prayed to God, he was blessed for all of those things. We need to show the world that we are Christians. I've said this multiple times on this channel, but we need to be like Daniel. We don't have to be like, you don't have to show people that you're praying like he did. Like some people say that they took this is for America. Some people say that they took prayer out of church. No, out of schools. But that's not true. You can pray anywhere at any time in any moment. That's what we were getting at. There's no specific thing that can take away prayer. You can pray in your head at any time. You can get down on your knees and pray. You can stand up and pray. You can lay down. You can do whatever. You can pray at any time. We might not have to show like that we are Christians. Like we don't have to like get down on our knees and pray in the middle of Walmart, but like you can still do things to show that you're Christian. Like if you go out to eat with like your family or friends and you pray, you shouldn't be ashamed to be praying in public. It shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, get this over. I don't want to do this. It should be you praying and other people will be like, wow, I need to be more like those people. That's us showing the world that we are Christians. And there are countless other situations to show that you're a Christian. In the way you dress, in the way you act, the way you speak. There's a lot of different things that can show that you're Christian. God needs to be before everything. So in these boys' lives, God was before everything. Like they thought of God before anything else. Like Daniel thought of praying before, oh, I could get in trouble for this. The Bible will stand forever and everything on this earth will be gone. So it doesn't even matter. Like, if we're embarrassed to do something, we're embarrassed to like spread the word. Like, it doesn't matter. Everything on this earth's gonna be gone. Everyone's gonna die eventually. Like, on earth, or earthly bodies will die eventually. But the Bible is forever, as he says, His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall have no end. The Bible's going to be around forever, and that we need to do as much as we can to spread it to these people who don't know about this, because it's going to suck one day if you get into heaven and like there's so many people you could have saved if you would have just said like, hey, have you heard about Jesus? Are you saved? And they could be like, oh no, what's that all about? And you could be like, well, you won't die and go to hell. That's always a positive. So like there are a lot of things we can do and we need to be doing. This is what I'm trying to do to try to help spread the word to people, because I know some people like don't go to church and stuff, and I know some people are like too ashamed to go to church. So I'm trying to spread the word this way, and like I also like try to in my everyday life, but I know sometimes it can be hard. It was hard to start on here. I've always been really embarrassed of people finding my stuff, and I've always been embarrassed of taking videos of myself. But I'm really trying to do it on here because I know people really need it, especially. And like, I've been to several church camps and we've talked about like spreading the word with friends, or like how to get into the conversation without like being too pushy or whatever. And like trying to live like Jesus. And so I've been trying to do that, and I thought like this would also give me some accountability to be like, hey, you're not the only one that you're talking to anymore. So like I've been really trying to get back on track because I kind of fell off for like a whole month. I posted like once in January and then none until February. So I'm really trying to get back into that. I want to try to post another like word of the month type deal like I did for January, because I completely forgot about it for February. So I'm going to try to start back on that in March. And then I'm also done with my 2 devotionals, so I'll let you guys know which 2 I get next, because I like to do 2 for like 1 on each page. I don't know if I showed you that, but I will eventually. But I'll also do a review of the ones that I have had, because I really do like them. But that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope my mic didn't, hopefully it didn't mess up this time. But I hope you guys all try to act like Jesus more every day. Hope I'm being a good influence. I'm really trying. Other than that, that's a pile of clothes hidden by a blanket. Hope you didn't notice. Anyways, I'm just like you guys. I suck sometimes too. It's okay. But I hope you guys have a great day, great rest of the week, and I'll see you guys next time.